Hello everyone, this is post-game me. This is not me inside the game. I wanted to make a video talking about early game aggressive laning as Kalista, not the late game, the mid game, just specifically the early game, because I've seen a lot more Kalistas as of recently, and I feel like a lot of them have this have some trouble with early laning from what I've seen, because they tend to either be a little too passive and let the enemy laner scale, or they take too aggressive plays, and then they'll end up giving up a bunch of kills or CS by accident because they misstepped. So finding that right balance can be difficult, and I'll try my best to explain how I go about doing it. Before explaining everything, I'm just going to go over the matchups really quickly. This is currently a Kalista Leona lane against Caitlyn Lux, and just to keep note of, there is also a Shaco on our team who's much better at ganking early game than Nidalee. There is a Shen on their team, so we have to be wary of level 6 Shen, and Shen Akshan is also better at roaming than Yone. But other than that, this is mostly going to be a 2v2 lane, because neither of these junglers, I think, are going to be spam ganking bot lane too much. But it could change, I don't know. But yeah, on to the actual laning. Your game plan as a Kalista early game is usually pretty simple. It's very similar to every other ADC. You should try to get level 2 first. Level 2 is always a good power spike no matter what champion you're playing. But the issue with Kalista is that her level 1 wave clear isn't great, especially compared to some other champions, and especially compared to a Caitlyn Lux lane versus Kalista Leona. Like, Lux can use E, Caitlyn can use Q and to clear up the wave quickly, but if you're against a lane that doesn't have great wave clear, which is kind of rare, but if it happens, like Kog'Maw for example, if facing a Kog'Maw, you could probably get level 2 first, and then you can fight. But even if you can't, if you have a support who is capable of fighting level 1, you should always try to go for it, because your level 1 is probably one of the strongest, especially if you're running Halo Blades. And just a quick note, you do not need Halo Blades to play aggressively. There are some plays which you can go for more easily if you have Halo Blades, and I prefer doing it if I'm against a poke lane. But if I'm against a enchanter lane or a tank lane, I pretty much always prefer going lethal tempo. So we got level 2 at about the same time, and our level 2 is a lot stronger than the enemy's level 2, which is why we just immediately decided to fight, because it only makes sense to do so. A lot of Caitlyn's do tend to go W second instead of E second. That's also a really good reason why you should try to fight immediately level 2. Unfortunately, the fight doesn't go great. It's a 2 for 2, but I end up with 2 kills while Caitlyn ends up with 1. If I had Triumph here, this would have been much easier, because with how low I got, I would have healed a lot from Triumph. But except for that, this was a good enough trade overall. After you can get full boots, it's actually very easy to trade more aggressively even against a poke lane, just because the general trading pattern as Kalista, what I think is really easy to do, is just use a minion to jump in, auto the enemy champion to jump out, and then auto the minion you auto attacked earlier a couple more times while still being in range of the enemy to activate your E and get a reset and do damage. If the enemy has bone plating, delay your E after bone plating. If you have your Q up, you can try and land your Q as well. If you can shoot your Q through the minion that you're stacking, you can give up on the reset and get even more damage. And depending on how you play it out, you can get a lot of damage in with just a short trade without taking too much damage back, especially if you're running something like Taste of Blood, or you finish your Vamp Scepter. So after your boots buy, you can start playing very aggressively, because that extra bit of mobility you get, it lets you be very, very aggressive with your laning. You can position very forward. You can essentially use your HP as a resource to take trades and set up for a dive or do Drake or invade or whatever you want. Once you get level 6, you should always try to look for a dive on the enemy team while you are level 6, and especially if you have a level lead. If both of you are level 6, yeah, you can wait until you have the right opportunity, but the moment you hit level 6, just focus on getting some sort of push, fast or slow, some minions on the enemy turret, and dive them. And you should always have your support tank first, because your ultimate can just give them invulnerability, take them out of turret aggro, and keep them alive. Always have them tank first. Always ask them to continue fighting after de-aggroing, unless the enemy dies, obviously. But don't tell them to like ult away to safety, because a lot of cases that can lead to your death, and trading 1-for-1 isn't always great, especially if you have a shutdown while being ahead. So level 6, dive, pillar support to aggro, the turret, go in, kill, get out, and it's just as easy as that. The moment you finish Blade of the Ruined King, you can start playing hyper aggressively, because once you have completed Boots and Blade of the Ruined King, I don't think there's a single champion in the game that has a stronger power spec than you do at the same level and number of items. Because your damage goes up by like double or maybe even triple the moment you finish that item, just because it synergizes so well with Kalista. You do all of the Blade of the Ruined King damage with your first few autos, and as the damage of Blade of the Ruined King starts getting weaker because it's current health damage, your E can finish them off. So they complement each other very well. And so whenever you get Halo Blades and Blade of the Ruined King up, just run into the enemy team, and a lot of cases you'll just kill someone because it's so strong. Even if you have lethal tempo, you can easily extend out fights. Like the way I fought Caitlyn here, I can just go it whenever I want essentially. But still try to dodge skill shots because you have mobility for a reason. But in most cases, you can just win fights flat out the moment you finish your first item. By now, laning phases is essentially over. Like after turret platings fall, after the tier 1 turrets are gone, and people are starting to run around going for other objectives like the Herald and Drake and such. That's the time to just get out of lane, do some other stuff. Laning phases is essentially over. From here on out, there isn't a lot I can say of specifically what you should do. This becomes just entirely ADC macroing, so stick to your team whenever there is so that you can join whatever team fight comes up. Try not to recall when a big objective is coming up. Try to take as much farm as possible, whether it's jungle camps, the minions in mid, or if the tower is, or if the minions are reaching the tower in top or bot, you can rotate there as well. Whatever the case, do play selfishly just to get a bunch of gold, because you are still very strong as Kalista, even up till 2nd, 3rd, and 4th item. 5th item, I'd say you start falling off because there isn't really a great 5th item you can go, like the usual build of Blade of the Ruined King, Rage Blade, Terminus, and Jaksho is great. It covers pretty much every aspect of Kalista you'd want: tankiness, damage, armor pen. The only thing it doesn't really give is any grievous wounds or any like lifeline passive or something, but it's still a very good 4 item overall core build. You can still make up for the whatever you lack as on your 5th item slot. So the overall summary of the guide that I want to talk about for early laning are the following. Take auto attack traits whenever you can, because one auto attack from you is more damage than one auto attack from the enemy team because of your rend. You can play very aggressively when you get full boots, and you can essentially just 1v1 any champion in the game once you get Blade of the Ruined King on top of that. You are always trying to contest the wave early on for level 2, and then fighting as much as you can, level 2, level 3. Afterwards, you can play it out with whatever gold lead you have until level 6, and then you can proceed to look for a dive and then go for objectives and such. You should always try to use your ult more aggressively than to save people, but there's always different cases for using your ult. It's a very versatile ult for a reason. And just play it out as a usual ADC in the mid to late game, because the playstyle doesn't differ too much from a regular ADC. It's just the early game where the level of aggression you want, it's like not like that of a Draven where you're just running up, autoing, and coming out. It is kind of like Draven, but like unlike someone like Draven or Lucian, you don't quite have great poke. You just have really good all-in, so getting the poke in can't always be that easy. So from here on out, there's not much I can say, so you can kind of just enjoy the gameplay, because it's a pretty hard game and it's pretty scary, but we end up winning. Oh my god. GG. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. It was hard until the very end.